I know she did, but I don't think she had a family.
Until she angry or something, then she would throw something out. No, not like
All right.
Graduates in May from University of Colorado. Came across getting her house built on the market. A picture and it shows like four women.
Especially Judith.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do need to start, and if everyone could find their seat now, that would be wonderful. Please refrain from eating. We're going to have a motzi.
Okay, we are about to begin our program, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce cantor Deborah Kachko-Gray.
I'm so delighted to be here. It's very important for me to honor these two women who have done so much for our community. And I have a big Broadway concert event at my synagogue that unfortunately I have to leave quite quickly to attend to. But I did not want to miss this. And even though my father would often say, mit ein Turkes nicht tanzen zwei Chasana, with one Turkish you can't dance at two weddings, I'm doing that today. In fact, I'm dancing at 4 weddings today. You don't need to know all the details, but I did not want to miss this for anything. And so I thought it would be wonderful to sing a couple little pieces of Yiddish, a few Yiddish songs for these wonderful women. I see Agnes here, and I'm looking for Judith. You've done so much for education, both of you. It's very appropriate to sing. Oif in Prepperchen brennt a fire, und in Stubis heiß, und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach, dem Aleph Beis. Und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach, dem Aleph Beis. Setsche Kinderlach, gedensche Teire, was ihr lernt da. Suche noch einmal und tage noch einmal, kommt's alle vor. Suche noch einmal und tage noch einmal, kommt's alle vor. Oh, the fire burns in the fireplace, and the room is hot. And the rabbi teaches all the little ones the Aleph Beis. And the rabbi teaches all the little ones the Aleph Beis. See now, little ones, remember, children, don't forget it, please. Say it once and say it over once again, all your ABCs. Say it once and say it over once again, all your ABCs. Zetsche Kinderlach, gedensche Teire, was ihr lernt da. Suche noch einmal und tage noch einmal, kommt's alle vor. Suche noch einmal und tage noch einmal, kommt's alle vor. Und Himmel am Matone, bis mir so geschieht, Mein Glück hab ich gewinnen, denn ich habe dich gefunden. Schön's wie Teutzen Szenen, hast mein Herz beglückt. Deine zänkelach weiße Perle, mit deinen schönen Augen, deine Kleiderlach, deine Herrlach, hast mich zugezeugen, schön wie die Levone, lichtig wie die Sterne, von Himmel am Matane, bist du mir zugeschickt. Like the moon above you, the stars remind me of you. The angels knew I loved you, so heaven sent you to me. I'm such a lucky girl, you came into my world. There's not another lady feels as good as me. Everybody sing if you know it. Deine Zängelach, weiße Perlach, mit deine schöne Augen, deine Kleiderlach, deine Herrlach, hast mich zugezeugen, schön wie die Levone, lichtig wie die Sterne, von Himmel am Matane, bist du mir zugeschickt. For these two beautiful ladies, meine jüdische Mädel, sie ist also schön. Meine jüdische Mädel, mit ihrer jüdischen Gein, von Gold ihrer Herrlich, die Zähne wie Perlach, nur ein jüdische Mädel, kann sein also schön. Ihre Welt vor Millionen, bei anderen Nationen, nicht gefunden am Mädel, mit jüdischen Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Years ago, I had a bat mitzvah student who was looking for a mitzvah project, and she heard Judy speak, and she saw her show many different pictures, and she was going out of files and showing pictures after picture, and it seemed like an awful lot of work. And this lovely bat mitzvah girl said, I'd like to do a project where I will take Judy's pictures and make a slideshow out of it, and when she goes to speak to her 100,000th student, she will have something that's a little easier. She'll have a PowerPoint presentation, and the pictures will show on a screen, and she won't have to go searching for these pictures. And she chose a song that I recorded, May You Live to See Your World Fulfilled. And that song is now played every time Judy goes to a school and shows her pictures. So we are connected every time she goes to speak. And it's such an honor to have each other in each other's hearts for such a beautiful reason, education. Thank you, Judy.
Hi, before we begin the program, I just want to let people know that we're going to be closing the auction down in about 10 minutes. So if you're interested in any item, please work your way over there. Thank you.
That was Marcy Schoenfeld. She's our auctioneer extraordinaire. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Elisa Kaplan, and I'm president of the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County. Thank you. Wow. We are delighted to see you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and all of you. This is an amazing turnout, but of course, with Judith Altmann and Agnes Vertes, we expected no less. Welcome to the 11th Heritage Award ceremony and the 35th anniversary of the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County. And please eat, enjoy, v'tei avon, all that good stuff. This year, as you are pointing out to us and you are demonstrating, we are doing something extraordinary, honoring Judith Altmann and Agnes Vertes, who embody in every way embracing human dignity and resilience. So a big hand for our honorees. For the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County, this is a pivotal moment, as it was only last year that Connecticut became the 10th state, and I understand now there are 12 states, to pass the Holocaust and Genocide Education Awareness Act that mandates public schools to provide Holocaust and genocide education in the public school system. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about that today. The spirit of our honorees has encouraged JHSFC to partner and glance to your left with Voices of Hope in Connecticut, the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center in Westchester, and the Anti-Defamation League of Connecticut, with programming and resources to help ensure that Judy and Agnes's work in Holocaust and genocide education will continue. And we're delighted to have those organizations here, and you can find out much more about them with their information over there. From the moment you entered today, out of the cold, sort of cloudy day, we hope that the sun was shining in here and that you were uplifted and transformed. Did you notice the butterflies on the floor and in the garden? Yes, immediately people think of, I never saw another butterfly, and of course, we're connected to that amazing book. But it also is the idea that, like a butterfly, we hope that each of you today will in some way be or begin to be transformed. And you will fly and be beautiful. The exhibit, It All Begins With Us, honors Judy Altmann and Agnes Vertes. Well, we found pictures that they didn't even know they had. It was created and designed by Dr. Carmit Zisman, Professor of History and Historiography, and Deborah Emery and our volunteer staff at the archives. Big hand. It's an amazing and well-done exhibit. However, the exhibit continues at your table. Inside your journal, there's a survey, and it says it starts with us. When you have a chance, look over this survey and see where you are. If you'd like to fill it out, you can leave it with us at the table or take it home and think about it. And on your centerpieces, which are beautiful, and thank you, Julie Margolis. Big hand for Judy. There are some questions. We want you, while you're eating, to get to know the people at your table and glance over the questions and see if you'd like to comment or just think about ideas about what you are already doing or you can begin to do to make this world a better place. I would now like to thank the people who made this day possible. We have to start with Peter Lilienthal, our chair. Peter, please stand. Marcy Schoenfeld, co-chair, please stand. You already met Marcy. And Seema Broza, did you make it into the room? Thank you for the journal and all things visual today. Every member of the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County, every member of the board was part of the committee to make this happen. If you are a board member of JHSFC, please stand so that we can recognize you. We have an excellent crew, including our honoree, Agnes Vertes, who we're very honored to have on our board. Don't think that Judy Altmann does nothing. She teaches Yiddish, or leads a Yiddish experience once a month, a Bissell Yiddish. Judy, please stand. And you thought she was just involved in Holocaust and Genocide Education and baking cookies and seeing grandchildren. No, she's busy doing many activities. For the past 35 years, JHSFC has produced hundreds of high-quality and innovative programs, assembled a 4,000-volume library, Judaica library in Hebrew, Yiddish, and English, and built a historical educational treasure trove in our Vivian and Irwin Miller archives, which preserve the stories of Jewish families, including material written in Europe at the time of the Holocaust. Who were the leaders who brought JHSFC to this day? I would like to recognize our past presidents. As I call your name, would you please stand? Lester Sharlock. Did Fred make it in? No, okay. Fred Gollum. David Queskin. Okay, he has another little event tonight. Okay, Arnold Yellen. Gail G. Trell. And Ava Weller. With your help and support, before today and during the day, we can become a first-class center for Jewish history. We have a lot of innovative and ambitious projects ahead of us, and we invite you to join us on our journey for the next 35 years. Awards and gifts will be presented. Here's a few housekeeping notes. We will be presenting awards and gifts at the end of the program, so you don't want to miss that. And Marcy is urging people to sneak out to the silent auction for one more time, one more bid. And finally, please turn off any electronic devices, except, of course, your pacemakers and defibrillators. And please enjoy the meal, and we are honored to have you here to honor these amazing women. Thank you.
With that, my name is Bob Abrams. I also am a member of the Jewish Historical Society and honorary birth resident of Stamford, Connecticut. My parents moved here when I was 3, and then they abruptly left me on the doorstep. It wasn't fun. Imagine how I felt. Okay, seriously, thank you for coming today. The theme, as you know, is embracing human dignity and resilience. I think we're all want to say that in times like these, we really need to address these issues. Unfortunately, as we look back, it was always time to address these issues, but thankfully we're addressing them today as well. So as my first responsibility of being the MC, I get to introduce a wonderful human being, actually many human beings and many wonderful human beings, but not all at the same time. I'm going to introduce the very Reverend Mark Lingle, He is the Executive Director of the Interfaith Council of Southwestern Connecticut and the pastor at St. Francis Church for the last 17 years. You'll notice when he gets up here, he has gray hair. He didn't always have gray hair. It happened when you became the pastor, is that correct? And afterwards, we are all honorary members of the Interfaith Council. So please, everybody give a warm welcome to Reverend Mark Winter.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Interfaith Council, I'm delighted to be with you to honor these amazing and exemplary individuals, Judith Altmann and Agnes Vertes. They are the embodiment of human dignity and resilience. It goes without saying, but it needs to be said countless times. We are blessed by what you have done. Your work in speaking to over 100,000 students in hundreds of schools across the country staggers us. Indeed, Judy, we met years ago when I was a chaplain at Worcester School in Danbury, when you spoke during our annual Yom HaShoah observance, and you speak often to students at King's School, where my wife is the head of the upper school. We are a couple of the thousands whom you have impacted by telling your story. The philosopher Hannah Arendt, in her work analyzing the revulsion and repugnance of the Holocaust, coined the phrase, the banality of evil. The phrase was not simply a reflection on what happened in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, as normal individuals went about their work, trying to support their families, doing a good job wherever they were located. Meanwhile, they participated in atrocities that continue to stun us. Tragically, the phrase could not be more apt today. The Anti-Defamation League reports the anti-Semitic acts rose 57% in 2017, with almost 2,000 incidents occurring during that year. That's almost 6 per day. Furthermore, research confirms what we all perceive as happening in our country. There has also been a spike in racist, homophobic, anti-Muslim, and anti-immigrant acts over the past 3 years. And the current regime in power continues to peddle what is happening as normal or of no concern or a few bad actors as it works to regularize these atrocities. The banality of evil is present in our own time and in our own country. Therefore, as we gather to honor the amazing work of Judith Altmann and Agnes Vertes, and we celebrate human dignity and resilience, we are also mindful of how precarious our freedom and liberty are. We recognize how easy it is for atrocious acts against our humanity to be regularized and justified. How simple it is for people to be lulled into thinking what was once inconceivable is now normal, and how vicious the winds are that stoke such hatred and violence within our society. Thus, we are reminded how vital it is for each and every one of us to stand up to such assault upon the basic foundations of decency, compassion, and opportunity for all. We recognize how important each voice is, and not to remain silent, particularly in a sea of lies and fabrications. We recommit to standing with all who are marginalized, disparaged, or abused because of their religion, their belief, their race, or their ethnicity. After the Holocaust, many were asked, "What did you do?" The question is one that will be asked of us as well. Let us not stand idly by in this time. We need to speak out, to act, to stand with those who are threatened today. As Judy and Agnes will attest, history will be our judge. Thank you.
This past year, my wife and I went to Amsterdam, and we went to the Anne Frank house. Raise your hand if you've been there. Oh, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So after the main house, they have the films outside when you leave the house itself, and they have small films that you can watch. And one of the films shows the Nazis marching up an avenue, and when you leave the museum, you turn and you face that avenue. And my wife pointed that out. And we were on our way to another museum right afterwards, and I was really embarrassed. I was just, I don't think I've ever been so angry and frustrated in my life, and for good cause. It's just, there's nothing to say after that. So we should all remember what happened, what can happen, as Reverend Lingle pointed out, and the wonderful people that are being honored today and for their heroism. It is now, on a lighter note, it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Tony Boucher, and she was the Chief Deputy Majority Leader in the Connecticut State Senate. How many of you, okay, so I know a lot of you have been to the Anne Frank House. How many of you have been legislators in the state Senate? Me neither. But I've been to the Capitol. Okay. Anyway, she's represented the 7 towns of the 26th district, which include Bethel, New Canaan, Reading, Ridgefield, Weston, Westport, and Wilton, and other towns beginning with the letter W. So please give a warm welcome to Tony Boucher. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Alyssa, Peter, Marcy, Bob, and the members of the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County for inviting me to join you today. I feel privileged to be in the company of the 2 amazing and resilient women you celebrate and honor with your 2019 Heritage Award, Judith Altmann and Agnes Vertes. Their work in Holocaust and Genocide Education was ongoing long before Senate Bill 452 and became a law. I'm in awe of the courage that it took for Judith Altmann to endure the worst of man's inhumanity and then to relive that pain in the retelling of it in so many times, so many ways over the years. Agnes not only was a survivor, but also documented the stories of other children survivors undertaking the vital task of passing on their life experiences to future generations of school children. One cannot truly understand or appreciate the emotional toll that it must take on these women for doing what they have done for so long, especially when you meet them and they're so happy and they have families. It takes enormous fortitude to do this so that others can learn and teach and be vigilant so this will never happen again. And by retelling of these stories, it is our hope that fear and prejudice is replaced with compassion, with tolerance, and with acceptance. Public Act number 18-24 states, for the school year commencing July 1, 2018, and each school year thereafter, each local and regional Board of Education shall, not may, that's the operative word up in Hartford, shall include Holocaust and Genocide Education and awareness as part of the social studies curriculum for the school district. My mission to pass this law started with my belief of the power and impact that a first-hand account of the Holocaust or a book detailing the experience can have on a young child. When I was 12, I picked up a book my older brother was reading. He was very precocious and devoured books of any kind, but particularly on World War II. You see, our father had been in the war and as a prisoner nearly starved to death. Like so many, he never was quite the same again. I also overheard my mother and aunts whisper about how the Nazis had overrun our small family farm in Europe.
how they would kill the livestock and the horrible things they did to the women who were left alone to care for the children and the elderly. The book that I picked up was a bit too advanced probably for my age. It was Auschwitz, a doctor's eyewitness account. It was for much more mature individuals. It was shocking, it was gruesome, it was unfathomable. I put it down, then I picked it up again. But I couldn't stop reading, and I could not believe that anyone could do such things to another human being. It had, as you can tell, a profound effect on me for the rest of my life. But it was not until college, however, that my deep-seated feelings would play out in a very unexpected way. I was so excited to be asked to join the most popular sorority on a very big campus. After all, my family and I had arrived to this country at the very bottom of the economic and social ladder. Literate, poor, not speaking a word of English. I was elated to be considered as a member of this elite group on campus. But my bubble burst just after being inducted. I was taken aside and advised to stop associating with my roommate and best friend because she was Jewish. I was shocked and crestfallen, very disappointed. But I made up my mind that this was not an organization I wanted to be a part of, and officially de-pledged from the sorority. My encounter with anti-Semitism resurfaced when I served as a state representative for the town of Wilton. Swastikas began to appear in town, so turning anger into action, I joined a group organizing the 60th anniversary of Israel and worked to hold it in our town. It was quite a celebration with nearly 1,000 in attendance. This also prompted an effort to propose a bill in the legislature to mandate Holocaust education for every child in Connecticut. The journey to enact this groundbreaking law spanned over a dozen years, sadly, and took me down a very long and winding road with many unexpected roadblocks being put in its way. I had previously been a member of the Connecticut State Board of Education and was now on the Education Committee. I naively believed that although I was in the minority party, I surely could convince my colleagues of the need and worthiness of this bill. But I quickly learned that this was not the case. At first, they said, oh, maybe a good idea, but no unfunded mandate would ever be allowed to pass. They would, however, throw out a bone, pass a bill to give schools the option of accessing a curriculum guide on the subject if they wish to voluntarily, but not required to, be taught. At the same time, we had a chair who was Irish on the Education Committee, and he also felt he needed to include a curriculum guide, on the Irish famine as well. Well, over many years, these curriculum guides sat on the shelf of the Department of Education collecting dust. I made several more attempts to pass this bill when I was elected to the state senate in 2009, but ran into even more roadblocks. Rumors of organized opposition by various groups cast a shadow. Massacres at black churches made some feel that the bill would not be appropriate at the time. There were requests to delay the bill, unusually so, by Jewish groups or legislators. And I began to understand why. They did not want to draw negative attention to themselves, and the timing always never seemed right. It was frustrating because it seemed like this bill would never be able to move forward. However, the numbers of anti-Semitic incidences, as you just heard, certainly started to grow, especially in 2017, and it was causing some alarm. I knew that we were reaching a tipping point, and the time to place this educational mandate back on the front burner was at hand. Several anti-Semitic incidents occurred in 4 of the 7 towns in my district, and I proposed this bill once again. But now, as one of the chairs of the Education Committee, because just for 2 short years we had an 18 tie in the Senate, I could be sure that the bill would finally get a public hearing. Then something really extraordinary happened. I hope you know this gentleman and give him a good pat on the back. the new executive director of the Jewish Federation of Connecticut, Michael Bloom, approached me in the hallway in the Senate, and he told me that his organization and many others, many in this room, were there to help move this bill forward this go-round. He was a very important and skilled ally. Michael had worked in the Senate and knew the process, the people, and the Voices of Hope also joined in the effort. But the fight wasn't over. Last-minute obstacles kept reappearing. Someone added a cost that could effectively kill the bill. Michael Bloom moved mountains to have the cost eliminated. Language was included in the bill that helped, which said, Board of Education may accept gifts, remember this, everyone in the room, accept gifts, grants, donations, including in-kind donations, designated for the development and implementation of Holocaust and Genocide Education and Awareness. So any school district that was required, and they all are required now, could do this without a financial burden. So many organizations stepped forward to help fund the program. Then, out of nowhere, at the end hour, as I was driving back in my car, from Hartford, I get a call from my legislative aide and said, "You won't believe who's on the phone, Tony." Said, "The Turkish consulate. They want to talk to you." I said, "Okay," I put him on speaker, and the drive is an hour and a half long. And the entire hour and a half long, in a last-ditch effort to kill the bill, I was badgered by the Turkish consulate, but without any success. And I have to tell you, in fact, it made me even more determined than ever to see this thing through. Soon, as this was taking up speed, people could see that it was moving forward. More and more people on both sides of the political aisle came on board. Very significant leaders in the General Assembly, House and Senate, and were instrumental in its passage. So they all should be congratulated for it as well. The journey's end was finally in sight. The bill first passed unanimously in the Senate. What a change. And the House vote quickly followed suit. And the word is getting around, as you just heard. When we passed this bill, there were only a few states that had laws like ours on the books. Now the number has doubled. And it's my hope that that number doubles again in each succeeding year. Because if we're to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again, we must teach every generation about the depths of depravity that can result from irrational hatred. It was also very greatly rewarding to see my own town that I was living in, the town of Wilton, immediately embrace the new mandate by inviting the author of The Tattooist of Auschwitz, Heather Morse, to come to Wilton from Australia, the first town in America that she actually visited, to lecture on her book at the high school and the library. And then an author, Jennifer Elfgren, also visited Wilton schools and read her book, this book, The Whispering Town, to our 4th and 5th graders, because even at that younger grade, they could have an impact. I took this book home. I brought it here to show you because you can see it's a little dog-eared on the end. And I wasn't sure that it would be appropriate, but I did it anyway. I took it home and read it to my 5-year-old granddaughter, Evie. She had me read it to her 3 times over and over again. And it was so touching to see her take it to bed and fall asleep with it in her arm. Too many of our young students still don't have the knowledge of the Holocaust. Some are still, as you well know, in denial about the terrible things that happened to people simply because of their religion. And as time passes, though, this has only been in law for just a short year, more will be exposed until all of our students are taught. But the history of the Holocaust isn't only about torture and murder and unspeakable horror. It is also about the lessons of resilience and courage that can inspire people. Judith Altmann, Judy, and Agnes, Vertes, are examples of how humans can experience the very worst of what humankind can exact on another, and yet still have the capacity to love, to work, and to hope for a better tomorrow. Judy and Agnes, what you endured is incomprehensible. I still am amazed how you relive it in the retelling of these atrocities and how so painful that must be. We owe you a debt of gratitude for continuing to persist, to persevere, and to teach. You are truly our heroes, and we thank you from the very bottom of our hearts.
Wow. Thank you. What do you say after that, right? How wonderful. Thank you, Tony, for all of your efforts and for your recollections. And now, let's see, now we want to recognize dignitaries that have joined us. So I have a long list, and it's real. We won't ask you to stand up because that's like half the audience. Joel Blatt, Felice Lesser, Carolyn Simmons, Tony Boucher, Carlo Leone, Susan Nabel, Bill Nabel, Lita Reuter, Andy Sclover, Deborah Cashco-Gray, well, she left. Something about a wedding, I don't know. Trayvon Diaz, Matt Blumenthal, Barbara Buck, Pam Ehrenkrantz, Diane Sloyer, Jackie Herman, Michael Hyman, the very Reverend Mark Lingle, Laureen Modi, from whom you'll hear in a couple of moments, Sheila Romanowitz, and Ellen Umansky. So thank you so much for joining us today. I also want to compliment the organization called Simply Elegant, which is run by Howard Weiss, who is our caterer today. So thank you, Howard. And now I get to introduce someone who is true evidence of the success of Judy Altmann's biological genes. Her granddaughter, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, Agnes Vertes genes. Sorry, Judy, I'm not going to make a joke about having children. Okay, sorry, about Agnes's genes. Sorry, please forgive me, Agnes. I apologize. Talia Rockmacher, as your journal shows, it says teenager. But she's much more than a teenager. Obviously, as I said, she's biological proof of the success of Agnes's genes. But she's also very dedicated to the Jewish heritage, to Jewish history. She is part of the NCSY chapter, National Council of Synagogue Youth, in her hometown. She also comes from the winter capital of equestrians, I guess, every equestrian, down in Florida by the name of Wellington, right, named after the Duke, and the food. So please welcome Agnes Vertes' granddaughter, Talia Rockmacher. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Talia Rockmacher. I'm the proud granddaughter of Agnes Vertes, and I'm delighted to be here today. As you know, we're all here to honor my grandmother and Judy's outstanding work with Holocaust and Genocide Education. As you already may know, my grandmother Agnes has produced 3 documentaries about the Holocaust and even won a Bronze Telly Award for all of her documentaries. Now, I could go on for ages about all of my grandmother's amazing accomplishments with Holocaust and Genocide Education. But before I go on any further, I would like to mention that 1/3 of Americans today do not believe that the Holocaust ever happened. Let that sink in for a minute. 1/3 of Americans today will deny that 6 million Jews were murdered simply for being Jewish. Can you imagine that? Now imagine if we didn't have people like my grandmother going around and educating people about the Holocaust. That 1/3 of Americans today could probably be 2/3, or even more than that of all Americans denying the Holocaust. And these numbers that we are discussing does not even include the rest of the world. To make matters even worse, anti-Semitic hate crimes have gone up 63% in New York City since last year, according to NYPD police. In recent years, anti-Semitism has been on a rise now more than ever before, and it is important to educate the next generations about the Holocaust. L'dor v'dor. generation to generation, meaning that it is entirely our responsibility as the Jewish community and as the next generations to be the ones to speak up against prejudice and anti-Semitism, and to not remain silent when others are suffering. It is our responsibility as the Jewish community to stand strong against hatred and to pass on the knowledge we have obtained from the generations before us. L'dor v'dor, meaning that it is entirely up to us to spread awareness and to teach others about the treacherous horrors of the Holocaust. It is our job to speak up and to sustain the memory of the Jewish people. L'dor v'dor. My grandmother, Agnes, would teach me about the Holocaust since I was a little girl. She felt compelled to teach me about it not only because she was a survivor and because she was Jewish, but because she knows that years from now, when there are no survivors left to tell our stories, it is up to us, the next generations, to tell the stories of the Holocaust. Sorry. We want to be the difference that... Okay. Holocaust education is so crucial to teach the next generations for multiple reasons. One being that we want to prevent another Holocaust from occurring in the future. Holocaust education also promotes the acceptance of diversity and good moral values in children. Holocaust and genocide education teaches children not to remain silent when others are suffering. Not only is it important to teach children about the Holocaust, but our very own educators need to be informed as well. As you may have heard, a few months ago, a local school principal who works at a prominently Jewish school wrote a letter to a parent admitting that he did not think that Holocaust and genocide education was important because he did not believe that the Holocaust actually happened. In the principal's own words, Holocaust education is not forced upon individuals as we all have the same beliefs, have the same rights, but not the same beliefs. This principal cannot seem to separate his own ignorant opinions from the truth. What makes this matter even more frightening to me, as I said, was that this took place in an area that was a prominently Jewish community. It was not a random part of America where Jewish life is not flourishing. This was in Boca Raton, Florida. Is this really how we are going to let the next generations grow up? With educators that cannot even properly teach our children history without being biased? This is why my grandmother finds Holocaust education so important to teach. We cannot forget the lives that were lost because of ignorant deniers. We as the Jewish people have to be the change that we want to see in the world. My grandmother says that her children and her grandchildren are her revenge on Hitler, and I 100% agree with that statement. Because now she has all of us spreading awareness and love instead of hatred and prejudice. Now I was going to choose my grandmother, but apparently that's not my job. So, before he introduces her, without further ado, I would like to introduce my grandmother, and I hate to be biased, but I think she's pretty awesome. Please help me welcome my grandmother, Agnes.
Thank you, Talia, for that wonderful introduction. I knew you would make a good speech. I know her for a few years now, 16. And as you heard, my name is Agnes Vertes, and I'm a survivor, but I was a very little girl during the Holocaust. And people used to tell me, how come you remember? Well, when I go to schools, I always ask the students, well, what do you remember when you were 4 years old? And usually they say, oh, well, I had a baby sister born and I was very unhappy. Okay. Some of them would say that, I got my first bicycle. So, what happens is that when you're 4, I'll take it up. Well, ooh, doesn't like me. Okay. Well, anyway, 4-year-olds, many of them don't have memories, but I have come to the conclusion that if something significant happened at that age, then we'll remember. And that's what happened to me. It was very significant. I was born in 1940 in Budapest, Hungary, and I come from a modern Orthodox family that was very wealthy. And I didn't have any special needs as a 3-year-old before the Holocaust. Actually, the Holocaust did not come to Hungary until March 19th, 1944, which is a date that anybody who was there at the time, just like we remember 9/11, all people who were there remember March 19th, 1944. Of course, I don't really remember that particular date because 4-year-olds don't really know about dates. I know it was a Sunday, but I don't know, okay, March 19th. Well, this happened overnight. The Hungarians were allies of the Germans. So it was a regular government, not a German assisted government, but the head of the government, Horthy, who was an anti-Semite, but he did not allow the deportation of the Jews. However, men between the ages of 16 and I think 55, because my grandfathers were also deported, or I should say taken for slave labor. And it was not a wonderful slave labor, because these people, whether they were doctors, lawyers, shoemakers, whatever they were, they had to follow the Hungarian army to wherever the Hungarian army was fighting, like, for instance, the Ukraine. And the problem was that they didn't get uniforms, they didn't get food, only half the rations. And if their commanding officer was a sadist, they had no chance of surviving. If it was a normal person who was caring about people, then the Jewish person had a chance to survive. Now, 1944, I told you, is when the Holocaust really came to Hungary, and that's when the misery started for 800,000 Jews in Hungary. Now, before that, the Allies were bombing Budapest, and the reason they bombed Budapest, because in that city, there was the largest industrial complex that was able to produce war material, by the way, owned by the Jew by the name of Weiss, who, by the way, he did something that no one ever did before him. He negotiated with Himmler, and he told him he can have the complex if he lets 32 members of his Jewish family go outside of Hungary. And so his family was saved. That was very unusual, because the Germans just went in and took everything. But in his case, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. Anyway, they were bombing, the Allies were bombing, and of course there were no smart bombs, so they were bombing the whole city of Budapest, and my parents thought that it would be much better if my sister and myself, with my mother, would go and stay with family in the countryside. And we did go. They had vineyards, and why would they bomb the vineyards? So it was pretty safe for us. But then when March 19 happened, then every Jew had to wear a yellow star by April 5th of that year. And I didn't have to wear a yellow star because I was under the age of 6, and it was only for people who were over 6 years old. So we're down there, and my dad was still up in Budapest, and I don't know how he came down to get us, because at this point in time, Jews were not allowed to use any public transportation. But he appeared and he said to my mother, you know, you better come back to the city because there are 1 million people living in Budapest and anybody could hide. But in a little town like this, everybody knows who's a Jew. So it's safer to go to Budapest, back to our house. And so he had the tickets, he had everything, and we went to the railroad station, which I remember very well because it was total pandemonium, because everybody wanted to go to one place, and another family wanted to go to another place, and mostly they were peasants, you know, the peasant women with the 100 skirts or whatever they had. The more skirts you had, the richer you were. Anyway, and they had their kids there, and also their animals, and ducks and geese and chicken were flying all over, so it was a total pandemonium. Anyway, the train comes in, and my parents are trying to get on the train with us. No way. They're pushing us off. So it did not take a genius to figure it out. It was because of the yellow star. Both mother and dad were wearing the yellow star, because if you were a Jew and if you didn't wear it, they could just summarily execute you there. So they're wearing this yellow star, which had to be 4 inches in diameter and certain yellow, and you always have to wear it on your outer garment. So they figured it out that they have to hide the yellow star. So my father picked me up, my mother picked up my sister, and covered the yellow star. We got on the train and chugging along to Budapest, and either myself or my sister moved. And they noticed the yellow star. You know what they wanted to do? They wanted to throw us off the moving train. And there were Hungarian soldiers who were supposed to protect the people on the train, but they were with the crowds. They were going to throw us off the train. And then from another car came some other soldiers. I don't know what nationality they were, because even today I probably would not be able to tell from the insignia. So they got into a fight, because the other people told the Hungarians, what kind of animals are you? Why are you trying to throw down from the train little kids? So a fight started, which I remember because they were rolling on the floor and with the weapons and everything that they had with them. And my dad said, let's get out of here. It doesn't matter who wins. The Jew always loses. And he said, we have to go to the last car, because the last couple of weeks, any Jew who was found even in the vicinity of the larger yellow, I'm sorry, the larger station next to Budapest, you know, the train station, they were picked up and never heard from again. So he said to Mom, you know what, before the train gets into the station, it slows down considerably, and we're just going to have to jump. Mom thought it was a crazy idea, but nevertheless, the train did slow down, and Dad jumped, and Mom threw me to him, then threw my sister Suzanne, and then she jumped. Now, I have no recollection how we got home, but once we got home, I was told, well, your name is changing. I was called Agnes Margaret Katz, which is very Jewish, not the Agnes Margaret, but the Katz. Anyway, so they told me, from now on, you never tell anybody your real name, because you could get killed. Now, you know, when you're 4 years old, what does it mean to be killed? Nothing. Not really. Because you don't ever come across dead people when you're 4, except I did later. Anyway, so I was told, I am Agnes Kovacs, and I am not Jewish, I am Protestant. And I had to learn all the little prayers that a 4-year-old Protestant little girl would know. And Mom said that I was a very good student. I learned it immediately. And I should tell people when they ask where my father is, that he is a lieutenant on the front fighting for the glory of Germany and Hungary. I still remember it. Anyway, so it was like really, not beaten into me, but they made sure that I will remember. And then one day, a lady came, I never saw her before, and she picked up my little sister, Suzanne, who was less than 2 years old at the time, and she took her away. And me, you know, I'm this little 4-year-old, I don't ask any questions. I didn't know where they took her. 2 weeks later, the lady came for me. And she said to me, now you, don't say a word, do not cry, do not scream. And she tells my mother, and do not follow us, and please don't cry, because no one should know what's happening here, because maybe one of your neighbors would go to the authorities saying that, well, something is going on there. So she takes me to the tram stop, and I see my mother. She is following us, even though she was told not to, and I saw that she was crying. And of course, the lady didn't see it because she was carrying me, and I could see back there, but she couldn't. And then the tram came, and we got on the tram, and as the tram was going further and further away, I was still looking at my mother, and she was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then she disappeared. And then I broke into crying. I was hysterical. I've never been away from my parents. And I didn't know where I was going, what's happening. Nothing was explained to me. I was devastated. We got to the place where this woman lived. By the way, she was really a righteous Christian, and we will find out in a minute why. So we arrived there. It's not really a house, it's some sort of shack with packed dirt floors, and there was electricity, but no running water, no toilets, so it was a shack. My sister was already there, and she was so happy to see me, and so it was okay. The lady was a very nice lady, and there wasn't much food, but my father's friend, whom he became friends with during university time, and this friend became a colonel in the Hungarian army, and you know, he still had his uniform, and he could pass any police who were looking for Jewish people, and of course he wasn't Jewish, and he had the uniform, so he could come and bring us some food, whatever he could find. So every week he brought something, and then one day the shack was demolished by a bomb, and she sent word, the lady sent word to my parents that she can no longer take care of us. So my parents sent the colonel, because he could go through any checkpoints. And he did come, and even though Mrs. Konus was the name of the lady, I'll remember it until I die. Anyway, she said to him, I told the parents of these children that I will never, ever give them to anybody else but to them. So, even though she knew this man came every week with food or something, she would come with us. How is that for a righteous Christian? And as we were walking, this was a dusty suburb, it was a very low-class area, and we were walking on the street itself, and all of a sudden, there comes a arrow cross guy. Arrow cross were the Hungarian Nazis, and they are called arrow cross because their insignia was 2 arrows crossing. So, they tell us, everybody go on the sidewalk, nobody on the street. And then I see that they have whips, and they were whipping men, women, and children, and pushing them with the butts of their rifles. And, you know, I am just watching this. I'm standing on the corner, and I'm being told that I'm supposed to be finishing, and I'm not even further away, but anyway. So, and the people who were standing on the sidewalk, you know what they did? They were yelling, "Stinking Jews, drop dead," and all sorts of lovely epithets like that. And then I'm standing there on the corner, and I'm thinking, aha, this is what it means to be a Jew. This is why I can't tell anybody my real name. Well, this is only the beginning of my story, but I understand that I have to give... They want me to finish it? Yes, they want me. What? Sorry about that. The more interesting part of my story is finished now.
Thank you, Agnes, and the whole biological family, and everybody else who's associated with her. Just so you know, if you haven't read the rest of the story, and without all the details, I'm sure Agnes in a speech can grab your guts. That was awful. Can get you emotionally involved. On the placards in the back there's more of Agnes's story. It's really, really so worthwhile for everyone to read. At this point, we're going to invite Laureen Modi, who is a dear friend of what did I do wrong now? I'm not responsible for that part. It's coming. Oh, so is Michelle. Yeah, don't worry.
Forced labor.
See, dessert. Like I said, it's not Yom Kippur. So, everybody calm down. Everybody calm down. Here's coffee and cake coming. There's nothing like a kiddush at a temple, right? Okay. So anyway, Laureen Modi is a retired educator, but not a retiring educator. She's been a nutritional consultant, a director for the gifted and talented, and the assistant principal of Clunan Middle School in Stamford. And anybody who's taught middle school students knows it ain't easy. Okay. She is committed to promoting students' intellectual and moral growth, and she has the high expectations of the students she teaches, not just to achieve academic excellence, but also she expects them to give back to the community and to make sure that students play a pivotal role in their communities. So without further ado, please welcome, a warm welcome to Laureen Modi.
Thank you for the privilege of being here today to honor Judith and Agnes. Can you hear me now? Yes. I thought I had my middle school voice, but it didn't work. I'm delighted to be here and to honor Judy and Agnes. I'm humbled by being asked to come here. Thank you. From generation to generation, Vador, Vador. I would like to speak about the impact of Judy and Agnes, the impact they've had on scholars, and how this generation has been charged to carry the work forward. Judy first spoke at Clunan on November 11, 2010. So I reached out to scholars who had heard her across the years. I wanted to reach out and get some feedback from them. So I wrote to them. A few years ago, while you were in 8th grade, you met and heard Holocaust survivor Mrs. Judith Altmann speak. She spoke about freedom and tolerance and the importance of creating a better world. I wanted to know your thoughts, reflecting on the impact she's had on your lives today. So they wrote back. and put together a few of their voices. Shanika, the word hope spoke to me the most. In these times, hope is also important. Personally, I try to have hope in everything that I do, and faith that will all come out good. During her presentation, Mrs. Altmann also spoke about freedom and intolerance and making the world a better place. This is very important. We are the future. We need to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us. Creating a better world can impact us and the upcoming generation, and that is crucial. Mrs. Judith Altmann has inspired us. Victoria. I was in awe of how bravely and fearlessly Mrs. Altmann shared her experiences. Everything she shared with us, from the extremely graphic to messages of hope, have stayed with me. I remember how she spoke about thinking of the future while being held in camps. I got to walk with her and remember the sense of peace she brought me simply by walking alongside me. I'll never forget that experience. And I thank her for having the courage to revisit such a dark time in order to teach us about tolerance. When I finally got to perform as Anne Frank, I kept in mind everything Mrs. Altmann had shared, and I felt even more connected to the time, along with an added positive pressure to tell the story of one of the millions of innocent people that were killed in the name of hate. What Mrs. Altmann taught me was priceless, that love, hope, and tolerance will always defeat hate and the darkness that it brings with it.
Hello.
Zach. Mrs. Altman's story is amazing and inspirational, and I know that whatever life throws at me, I'll be able to make it through and prosper, just like Mrs. Altmann did. When I'm struggling, I'm inspired to keep moving forward through all the challenges. Bryn. Simply put, Mrs. Altmann is an inspiration to me. She's a constant reminder to be forever grateful for the immense freedoms and the vast opportunities I am fortunate to experience this day. Mrs. Altmann also emphasized the importance of always treating one another with equal respect. I strive to implement this with every person I meet. As a Jewish woman in the United States, I have been able to practice my religion openly with no fear of being the victim of severe prejudice. I owe this to those, including Judith Altmann, who, although suffered greatly during the Holocaust, never stopped fighting for their individual freedoms and refused to give up on the religion of Judaism. To Mrs. Altmann, I am truly thankful. Gaurav. I can still vividly remember Mrs. Altmann. She came to our school to deliver a passionate speech about the Holocaust and its effects. She talked about the motives behind the horrific events, the life she had to live, and liberation. The speech was emotionally moving for all students. The biggest takeaway from that experience was, if Mrs. Altmann could persevere through those obstacles and come out stronger, so could students like me. It taught me that we cannot give up in school or in life. Dulcie. Mrs. Altmann is a strong person who survived a very hard journey. She inspired me, and I'm thankful for each and every day of my life, with an awareness that it can be taken away from you at any moment. I'm deeply thankful for the impact Mrs. Altmann has had on my life and on others. Samantha. Mrs. Altmann has deeply impacted my view on life. She has encouraged me to reflect on my family's Jewish heritage and gave me a new appreciation for those who lived through the horrible events of the Holocaust. I would like to recognize her as a true hero. Thank you, Mrs. Altmann. Shane. I remember very vividly Judy Altmann's story. I was in 8th grade when she came to visit my school at Cluny Middle School. This experience was life-changing and altered the way I looked at the Holocaust completely. It's inspiring that she has devoted her life to speaking about this very difficult and tragic time and how she has persevered. As she talked about her experiences, I connected to my cultural heritage. I am Jewish, and it made me really understand the significance of the Holocaust. Now, I am embracing my culture, becoming more involved in my community, and helping out in any way I can. Timothy. Mrs. Altmann has had a great impact on my life as I apply her lessons throughout the day. She spoke about the importance of learning, explaining that nobody can take away your education. And I think about this at school every day. She also said that appreciating one's family is imperative, as they are the people who are always there to support you, no matter what the situation. Mrs. Altmann's inspirational lessons are applied every day in my life and should be applied in everyone's. I grew up in the shadow of Mother Teresa in Calcutta. And Mother Teresa is saying, there are no great things, only small things with great love. And that's what Judy does. Our deepest thanks to Judy and to Agnes for speaking out, for being courageous advocates of the past. We must work together to make the world a safe place. We cannot forget. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How do I start? What do I say? How do I deserve that? When we were liberated, we saw this is the end of the world. Nobody will look at us because we were called unmenschlich. We were called subhuman. And then we realized, look at this room. Look at the support. It is just wonderful, wonderful. I want to thank you for this great honor bestowed upon us. It is a wonderful, wonderful feeling. But I have a message. The message is so much more important. I have a message to all of you, to all the young people, to the second and to the third, and there are some fourth generation, what we have to do. I come from Czechoslovakia. We were occupied in 1939. Hitler just walked in the audacity, he went to the castle, opened the window, and he says, this is a protectorate. Who was he protecting us from? Obviously, he meant the Russians. Anyway, from one to the other. After the occupation, our life has changed drastically. Every Jew had to wear the Star of David on the front and on the back. Yes, okay, thank you. Every man from the age of 18 to 45 was drafted to slave labor camp. Most of them never returned. We Jewish children could no longer go to school. I met my friend. She said, Judy, why weren't you in school? Because I'm Jewish. But you were Jewish yesterday. She could not understand what happened all of a sudden. Unfortunately, I have a long story, so I have to make it shorter. Anyway, we were still home. After the occupation, predominantly 85-90% of the Jews were taken from their home. They were put into ghettos. From there, they were taken to concentration camps in the beginning, and later to exterminating camps. One morning, it was, yes, they confiscate everything. They take everything away from you. You have absolutely no right. Anybody who had a profession, doctor, lawyer, teacher, could no longer work. It was just the most horrible way. But even that ended. It was a day before Passover. There were 2 SS men and 2 Hungarian gendarmes knocked on our window. You have a half hour. Take all your money, take all your jewels, and start marching. We lived 6 kilometers from town, and what do you take in a half hour? My father took his prayer shawl. My mother didn't want to go. She says, I don't want them to kill me. I'm going to drink something. We persuaded Mom not to do that. And we started marching. We came, it was an hour walk from where we lived. And we were told to go to the Jewish cemetery. And my father said, how convenient, they're going to kill us. They don't even have to bring us to be buried. That didn't happen. After a week at the cemetery, we were taken by regular train to a town into Hungary called Vertes. There were thousands and thousands of people. This was the ghetto when they were there prior to that, but we came. We stayed there 6 weeks, and we were the young people, we were helping, we were cleaning the ghetto, we were cooking, but we were still together with our parents. That too ended. One morning we were taken to the railroad, and this time we were put into cattle cars, 75 to 80 people in one of the cars, crammed like sardines. They closed it with an iron bar, and we moved the following morning. It was the longest, the most horrible 4.5 days. There was no air. They gave us an empty bowl to use as a bathroom and one filled with water. The children were crying, they want food, they're hungry. But what was the worst? The worst, people went crazy, they were berserk. So they started hitting one another and screaming. So the SS man said, if that doesn't stop, we will take all of you out and shoot you on the spot. So we had to tie them out and keep them quiet. It was the 21st of May. We arrived to our destination. We don't know where we are. We see men in the striped uniform running back and forth. And we ask them, where are we? What is this? And they say, this is hell. And they're giving us order. Line up, row of 5, women and men. There's my mother, my sister, my aunt, my niece, and myself, and my aunt's 3 little children, 2, 4, and 6. There's my father's row. My father, my brother-in-law, my uncle, my nephew, and another man. And they give the orders. The men in the striped uniform are looking at young girls and boys, 14, 18, in every language, 14. What do they mean by 14? We found out later. Out comes this tall man, very handsome, with the shiny boots. This is Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was called the Angel of Death. And he deserved that name because he was to determine who shall live and who shall die. He came to our row. He pointed to my niece to go to the left, to me to go to the left. We went to the left and they went to their death. When I passed my father's row, he put his hand on my head as he did every Friday night to bless us. He said, Judy, you will live. This was the last time that I saw my family. 24 members of my family were killed that day. We came to a room, we had to get undressed completely. We went through the showers. In our case, water was coming down. In our parents' case, the gas was coming down. We were walking, we are in Auschwitz now. Yes, there is a big sign, Arbeit macht frei. Work will liberate you. But that gave us a little bit of hope. So maybe we are taken to work. But that did not happen. We were walking from Auschwitz to Birkenau. It took 1 hour. We came to a big barrack there. 1,400 young women were put into a barrack. Within a half hour, There is the most horrific smell of burning, like burning hair. It was choking. So we asked the girls that were there before, what is this horrible smell? They said, these are your parents burning. As you went through the shower, they went through the gas chamber and immediately into the crematorium. It was done with such a speed. We were in Auschwitz 6 weeks. The food is hardly any. You get a little bit of black water in the morning and a pot of soup which is made out of turnip and thickened with some bread. Once a week you get a 4-inch square bread. It's very thin. You could eat it up in a minute, but you hold on to it because you don't know whether there is food the next day. We were there, our group, 2,000 Czechoslovak-born girls, women, young women. The oldest woman might have been not older than 32, and she had to look strong and healthy. When he came and looked at a young girl, and he said, how old are you? If you say 13, you go with the mother. If you say 14, then, and you look healthy, you're being taken to work. Now, he also announced, are there any twins? Step out, you're going to have a much better life. Unfortunately, that was the biggest lie, because right across from our barrack where we were, there was the hospital where Joseph Mengele with another doctor were doing experiments on twins. That is unbelievable. Anyway, we were there, we were in Auschwitz 6 weeks. One day, coming out of the shower, we were told to go to the railroad. This time, oh yes, we were given a little blanket. What a treasure. We were taken to West Germany, to the town of Gelsenkirchen. There, half of the 2,000 was working outside, building houses, building roads, building bunkers. Very hard work for young women. I was among the ones that worked outside. The others worked for Krupp, and they were working in ammunition. Many of us were, you couldn't be sick longer than 2 days. If you were sick longer than that, you're being taken away, never to be seen again. After many, many months, we were told to go to the next town. This time we were taken to Essen. There I worked, my group worked inside and the others out. What happened to me, a piece of iron fell on my wrist and it broke. If you cannot work, you're being taken away. I said goodbye to my niece and waited. In the middle of the night, somebody taps me on the shoulder. It's Essen's woman, Erika. Komm du Kleine, she called me little one. She took me to the hospital and they put on a cast. What do I need a cast? Don't ask questions. And the way she tells the foreman, I need this girl because she speaks so many languages, and if the Czech girl, the Polish girl, the Russian girl, the Hungarian girl doesn't speak German, doesn't understand, she wouldn't know what to do. He gave her the letter and I was saved. We were working very hard. We were getting skinnier and dying from hunger. The hunger, no human being should experience hunger. You just stop thinking of anything. But then we were told to go on the death march. But that was literally a death march. In what way? If there was a mother and daughter, and one could no longer walk, we had to drag the one that still could walk, hoping that we could save her life. We had to walk, it was almost 3 weeks, if I remember correctly. We finally arrived in Bergen-Belsen. Anybody that survived the camp of Bergen-Belsen will live forever. Mountains and mountains of dead bodies. My niece is already jaundiced, and she said, Judy, I am dying. If I could only have a morsel of food. The SS woman announced, if one of you can go, and two of us could carry the bodies to the mayor's grave, you're going to earn a bowl of soup. We did that. I found another girl. Ida was not capable to do anymore. She was so weak. So we got a bowl of soup. We divided it in three, and I was able to continue. Anyway, now in a beautiful, beautiful day, 1945, in April 15, in fact, we saw soldiers in a different uniform. We were liberated by the British. It was the most wonderful words to hear, you are free. We were all very sick. There was typhoid and TB, all kind of sickness. It took 1 whole year for me to be cured after the camp. When I woke up in the hospital, my niece was alive, which was a wonderful, wonderful thing. Anyway, unfortunately, it is a very sad way, what we all through, the second generation, they will talk about their parents. And it is so extremely important. But I have a real request to you all, young and very young, and Jews and non-Jews. We have to see that such things should never happen again. I just got an email what happened in Scandinavia. They were always very favorable to the Jewish people. Unfortunately, what happened last week on the 7th, the Jewish families in Denmark and Norway and in Sweden, the Jewish people found the Star of David, written Jude, and on their mailbox. The anti-Semitism is unfortunately growing, and we have to do something about it, and we can do it, because unfortunately, my father was one of them. He said Hitler will never reach it. He will never achieve it, because I was in the army before the First World War. It is England and America will win the war. But he was doing very well. Unfortunately, you must not forget it. It's got to be done now as much as we can. I wish I knew how to do it, but I know there will be a way. We have this country of ours. Unfortunately, we have some of it as well here, and we have to take it serious. And I thank you all very, very much.
Wow. Okay, so while we can, we have just a little bit more of the program, but to answer Judy's call to what to do, it's probably of equal importance that you remain here because this is how we move forward, all right? And it's what we do now going forward that will ensure the safety of not only Jews, but all minorities and all ethnicities and all religions for the future, for your children, my children, our grandchildren, and we even have a teenager here and probably a couple of other teenagers. We need it. We need it. Okay, so let's stretch our legs a little. So if you are a survivor, please stand. Holocaust survivor. We know that there are 2, at least. If you are a second generation survivor, a child, grandchild, please stand. We have a custom when we say, keep standing. We have a custom, if you can, by all means. we have a custom in some congregations that when someone says Kaddish, even those who aren't in mourning stand with them so they shouldn't feel alone. You people are not alone, and we will carry the message forward. So let's everyone stand up with them. We're going to do a paddle raise, which means money. Okay, I'll explain the rules. But the money that we raise today is going to go towards educational purposes that the Jewish Historical Society has begun already and will continue. The Jewish Historical Society has strategic partners. You can find literature over on the tables to the right, to my right. We will be working with those organizations, the Connecticut Voices of Hope, the Anti-Defamation League, and speaking of the Anti-Defamation League, Margie Lipschitz-Shapiro is here, so I neglected to welcome her and recognize her, and also the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center, which is, I believe, in White Plains. So thank you. Now you can sit down.
Careful, careful.
Okay.
It's okay.
Now,
Don't worry. Just looking for the corner.
for those of you who were successful in bidding on the silent auction, wait, there's more. And for those of you who weren't successful, wait, there's more. Okay, so a paddle race. Now, that means that all of you have paddles. You're not supposed to paddle anybody else. You just have to have a paddle that has a number. You were given with your name tag. They have paddles too or no paddles? No paddles, just a name tag and a number. Okay, so we're going to go by amounts. And you, oh, practice. Okay, everybody raise your hand because you're going to bid on something, okay? Just raise your hand. Don't worry, you're not obligated yet. Okay, with your number, okay? You got to know your number, okay? Okay, now, we're going to start off big. So, okay. Let's see. Okay. So, as we go forward in this, I want you to remember something, please. Agnes and Judy, they should live till 120. However, as was pointed out by many people today, in the somewhat near future, who's going to tell the story? Who's going to be part of bringing the story forward? Who's going to be part of educating the future of one minority speaking out for the rights of another minority, for one race speaking out for the rights of another, and ensuring a peaceful existence and not tolerance, but acceptance of everyone. And that's all of us here. So, to ensure that that goes on, raise your hand. We're going to start out with the big number of $5,000. If you can, please give $5,000, then raise your hand. Okay, we're going to move past it. We didn't think it would be 5, but you know, you have to try. Okay, but we're talking about transformational gifts. And also the money you give really doesn't go to support any salaries or overhead, right? There's no money that's spent for overhead. There's no money that's spent on salaries. This is a volunteer organization completely, okay? And thankfully, all the archival material of anybody's is all donated. So it goes straight into educational programs and preservation. So let's knock it down to $2,500. Would anybody be able to give $2,500? Spotters? Anybody with spots? Okay.
Hi, so you can see your number.
Yeah, raise them high. That was a Clint Eastwood movie. Actually, it was Hang 'em High. And there was a very funny with Mel Brooks, History of the World Part 1, which was a little scene that was comedic, where outside there was a guy that was going to be hung, but he was on his horse, and the horse had a noose on its neck also. Anyway, okay, so we'll go down to $1,000. How about 1,000? We must have a couple of thousand. Ah, we have one over here, 2 over there, 77, 80. Anyone else? Any other spotters? Anybody with spots? Thank you very much. Okay, and the Dalmatian work continues. Okay. Okay, how about $750? $750? Going once? Twice? Gesund. That was a professional sneeze. Thank you. $500. How about $500? $500. That's half of 1,000. I know I'm a CPA.
Take your name if you don't have a number.
Yeah, we'll take your name if you don't. We prefer names than numbers. Yeah? We got it. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're gonna, as I expected, we're gonna look down to 250. Here we go. There's 1 and 2, 61, and Mrs. Fanwick. Anyone else for 250? You know, 4 of those makes 1,000. It's like a quarter. Okay. That's it? Okay, now, how about the great number of Chai? Chai times 10. $180. Please. Oh, yes. 1, 2. Tell the number. 51. Ms. Appel? What? 7. It's a lucky number. 62. And 137? 137. Thank you. Anyone else? It's very quiet on this side of the room. Oh, thank you for representing that side of the room. Number 90. 90. Anyone else from that side of the room? You know, you won't be elected table captains if you don't give. 15. Number 15. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Now we're getting to $100. Okay. 64. 108. 145. 104. 18. Oh, brilliant. You are a mathematician, my own soul. 11. 128. 141. Anyone else? Did I miss anyone? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And 58. Thank you. And that's, I'm 58. I mean, he's paying, but I'm 58 years old. Okay. Just want to make that clear. Okay. 100, I think we're down to 50, I would imagine. What?
Everybody would like to give. There are envelopes on the table.
Oh, okay. Wait, did we do 100? We did 100. We did 100. Okay. If you would like to give more, there are envelopes on your tables. Please give what you can. Get involved. Be involved. The questionnaires that are in your journals ask you to consider what you can do to make the world a better place. You know, there's an old there's a Hasidic story. Of course, there's always a Hasidic story. You know, where is God? Right? Where's God? And the answer is wherever you let God in. That's where God exists. Wherever you can help, that's where God exists. Okay? That's where humanity exists. And the whole fundamental basis of Judaism and Christianity too are in the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are about respecting one another. So think about what you can do and respect one another. And now we're going to have a closing.
Bob, thank you so much. But I want to particularly thank Judy and Agnes, people I've gotten to know over a long period of time. This has been a gift for me. Marcy is coming up here.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. In any event, thank you all for coming today. This is really a terrific thing that we're all here today to celebrate these two lovely ladies and the stories that they have to tell, as well as others. And we have awards. How can you not have awards for these lovely ladies? So, here we have, for Agnes Vertes, thank you very much. Oh, wait, we have another. It is amazing. Marcy has a couple of words for you, and then I do too. Hang on 1 minute.
Sorry, I was doing the silent auction, and they will be posted on the way out there. I'd like to thank everyone for coming, obviously. This is a great turnout, but it's also a testament to these extraordinary women, and we really do appreciate all their accomplishments. This is the biggest endeavor I think JHS has ever done, or at least since I've been involved. We also want to thank Agnes and Judith for agreeing to be our honorees. We would not be here today if it was not for them. It just shows both of you how clearly loved you both are.
I was a little remiss because I'd not mentioned Judy Altmann's award, and thank you, Judy, so much as a gift to us all. Thank you very much. So just real quick here. We all listened to these two lovely ladies on their stories, and others too. And we are so moved by what they have to say. And as Bob sort of said before, but I want to reiterate, we all feel the movement about it. But then what do? There's a sheet by those tables there, with the three organizations that we're partnering with. And we have a committee in formation to deal with getting Holocaust and Genocide education with them into the school systems. If you'd like to join us with that, we already have 5 members that in fact are part of the committee. And if you'd like to just put your name there, we'd very much appreciate it.
Well, I just would like to tell you that I am very, very grateful to all of you. I've never had anything like this happen to me before. And I also want to tell you, to make it more emphasized, what Peter said, is that when I close my speeches at the schools, I always tell them that it is up to them. They are the future generation, and I am asking them to continue what Judith and I are doing now, because I want them to make this a better world. And usually they respond to that.
I just have a few words. I tell them I have all the reason to hate, but I do not. What I do is utilize your energy to the good things in life, because the hate only hurts you and not the hated one. So do the best you can, and stay alive and the letter survive. Thank you again for all of this honor. It's unbelievable.
Judy, thank you very much. Just as a very small footnote, a recent birthday, 95 years. And if you could think about it, the reason I'm here from the table, help us do a lot. And in that honor, that would be really terrific. Thank you so much.
One more thing. Well, I didn't have too much time, and most of the important things were left out. But what I want to tell you is that when I speak in schools, I do an experiment first with the students. No, I want to tell them this. And I ask them that, let's say there are 100 children there, for 10 of them to stand up. And then I tell them, if you were a Jewish child during the Holocaust, only this many of you would survive. And I am that 1 out of the 10. So, you know, this is a very important thing. 1,500,000 Jewish children were murdered during the Holocaust. And this is why I am doing what I'm
Thank you for coming today. Judy and Agnes are here. There's lots of material. We have the exhibit. There might even be a little wine left. And remember, nobody leaves as long as there's any food on the table. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to seeing you soon.